To the February 1st Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Roll, please.
Yes, Scott Allen.
Present.
George Piper.
Here.
Excuse me, Casey Sampson.
Present.
Andrew Anderson.
Present.
Nicole Wennington.
Present.
Commission this evening. First thing we need to do here is approve the approve the minutes. We have 2 minutes to approve, both October and August.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And now we have election of officers, our first meeting of the year.
I move that we have Casey Sampson as president again.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, or any discussion? All those in favor, by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We need just a vice chair. We don't have a treasurer. So who was our vice chair last year?
George.
Nominate George for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Any old business to come before the commission, so we'll move right into new business, which is a certificate of appropriateness. The Heart of Lebanon first, South Meridian Street Alley. We'll hear from staff first.
Good evening, Commission.
Hello, staff.
Welcome to 2024. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to wearing glasses, and it's not going very well. So tonight is an interesting agenda. No building-related COA requests necessarily, but I think the best way to describe the agenda is a couple pieces of artwork and some decorative signage from the city. And as mentioned, Casey, the first item on the agenda is a alley surface mural on North Meridian Street in the alley between Sampson Leather and what is known as the ballet building. So it is the Meridian Street alley when you start dissecting the alleys around the square.
Derek, sorry, I don't know if we need to pause.
Looks like a Jackson Pollock painting.
It does.
I don't know what the,
Can I borrow your glasses? They're working for me either.
These are rose colored.
Here we are.
Technical difficulties.
Do we need to roll a commercial?
yeah. Cue it up here.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't need staff.
Oh, really? Okay.
Is it on?
Will it be an HD? Yeah, could be high def. Or will it be a makeup room?
Okay, we're back. Welcome back. So I'll give you the staff report, and then we'll try to put the images up on the Elmo tonight, is apparently what we're going to do. So, first item on the agenda, the Heart of Lebanon, Missy Krulik and Corey Coots with us tonight. The location is the alley between 119 North Meridian Street and 111 North Meridian Street. The property is zoned central business. This particular property, alley, has not been before the HPC. The classification is technically city right-of-way. The certificate of appropriateness is mural on the alley surface. The Heart of Lebanon is proposing to paint a mural on the alley surface with a theme that is intended to celebrate the naming of Lebanon. You've probably all heard the urban legends of this, so this is related to that. The alley will be seal-coated in preparation for painting the mural. The design sticks to the urban legend, as mentioned, of what Adam Miller French is said to have considered when naming the community. Hickory trees will be the theme of the mural, with a ribbon banner containing the quote, "The name of this town shall be Lebanon," which Mr. French shouted from the mountaintops of Lebanon, Indiana. The color of the mural will utilize the City of Lebanon's branding colors. An informational sign will be installed in the alley that will match the wayfinding signage that is being proposed later in the agenda. The city is installing throughout the city in 2024. The sign in the alley will display information about Adam Miller French. And as you get into the urban legend of the name of Lebanon coming from the cedar trees of Jerusalem? Cedars of Lebanon, a biblical term. You will find that his quote is contradicted later on in history, where he says, actually, I named it after the city of Lebanon, Ohio, which I'm from. So sorry to be downer on that. So we'll go with the Cedars of Lebanon, though. Staff believes the mural is appropriate for the current space. As funding sources become available, this alley could see an improvement project. In the meantime, this mural adds an artistic design to an improved surface. So staff recommends approval of the mural and sign. And what I mean about, funding sources becoming available, the long-term plan for this alley has always been to replicate kind of what was done at the Chop House Alley, pavers, catenary lighting, the real treatment. And the money just hasn't been allocated to do that yet. So this kind of gets us some improvements in the alley, activates the alley, so to speak, until such time that those funds do become available. And with this project, and Missy can explain it a little bit further, but some of the grant funding requires the mural to be in place for a minimum of 5 years. So, the reality of it is, Lebanon, probably won't do anything with this alley for 5 years. There's nothing necessarily on the immediate agenda to do. We're working with both building owners, have had conversation with both building owners. Casey can talk about that a little bit more if he feels it's necessary. But I think both buildings are going to get some sort of treatment at some point. So to do a full-blown, city activation of this alley, in addition to not having the funding available, it's kind of, everybody's dragging their feet a little bit until the building improvements are complete. So let me give you see if this Elmo thing will work, and we'll look at the picture. In the rendering, you will see here, if this works. Don't know if it's going to work. Doesn't help. The catenary lighting in this rendering, which you can see here kind of in the layout, is not being installed at this time. It was just part of the study that Missy had commissioned about activating the space. So with the available funding, the catenary lighting was not in the budget. So there is the mural. Really sorry about this. Gives you a general idea. You can see some hickory trees here. The banner, the name of this town shall be Lebanon. Incorporated, and in this space right here is the proposed plaque. The length of the mural is, we're looking at 55 feet, so it's, these buildings are around 120 feet in length, so the mural doesn't go across the entire length of the alley. And when you start talking about some of the events downtown and how that alley is used, I'll let Missy talk about it a little bit further, but it allows for the back half of the alley to still be used in that capacity without, the amenities for the events being placed on that mural. Let's see if I've got anything else to add to that before I turn it over to the star of the show. I don't think I do. I think that's a general idea. I'll let Missy talk about this particular art installation. You can ask her any questions, and if there's any follow-up questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Good evening, Commission. Yes, late last year, probably August, September, we decided that we would go forward with a placemaking concept plan so that we, who were non-professionals, were trying to come up with placemaking ideas. So we hired BSK Design Studio, Benjamin K's. He was recommended to us by Context. So we felt pretty comfortable with this individual. So we commissioned him to do a placemaking guide for us for the downtown. We focused on some areas, one being Meridian Street, and then the other being Lebanon Street. We felt like those were the places that could use the most placemaking. So he came up with a whole concept for us of the different types of placemaking. And so when grants become available, we can kind of flip through our guide and pick what we might want to focus on, depending on how much the grant is for. So some things, he tiered them. Some are 1-tiered, 2-tiered, and 3-tiered. So we could, move forward with the appropriate dollar amount. So with the grant that we have before us, we chose this alley mural. So if you have ever looked at that alley, Meridian Street right there is kind of the showcase. It's where we hold a majority of our events, our car cruisins, our music on the plaza, that's our event space. And if you look at that alley, it's kind of unsightly. During the construction of the reconstruction of the square, they kind of tore up some of that alley. So you have different colored pavement in that alley, and it's not a welcoming alley right off of our downtown event space. So I felt like that was a pretty good one to focus on. In this design, he thought that painting the alley surface, and he gave some further examples of how that can really beautify an area. So we went ahead with the design that he came up with the name of the town shall be Lebanon, and just has a great historic story. So I thought that would be a great fit for downtown, in keeping with historic preservation and celebrating the history and the culture of our community. So that's kind of the one we went with. So I think it's a great way to activate that alley, beautify it a little bit. Like Derek said, this has to be in place for 5 years, a minimum of 5 years. And with this, we'll seal coat the entire alley, which will bring some uniformity to that alley surface. And then once we seal coat it, then it'll be ready for that painting technique. So that's kind of where we're at with this. I did try to use colors that were within the branding colors of the city of Lebanon, so that was kind of cohesive with what we're doing downtown. So, any questions?
Questions from Missy right away? I actually have a couple concerns with alley usage, and rather than try to remember them all, I did prepare a statement here, so bear with me, it's a little long, but I took a lot into account of what this commission has done prior and how our downtown looks currently. So after reviewing the application since we all received it on Tuesday, I've spent a considerable amount of time going over the details. The board has considered in the past and approved public art within the district, most recently on the Merle Norman building, as well as bringing back historic advertising on 1830 Chop House's west side of their building. Both of these pieces of artwork promote the building and the business in a historic and complementary way. Historically, I am not aware of any historic relevance where roadways in a main street downtown or roadways in general have had a mural painted on them. While the alley is truly vacated from vehicular use, visually, it is still an alley. In terms of cohesiveness, the board must consider the entirety of the district while having a pinpoint focus on our square. It is the epicenter of our district. Each side of the square has its own alleyway, dividing the blocks into two separate sections. On the south side, the commission approved a COA to include catenary lighting, pavers, and other decorative elements to fully make over and enhance the alley into a wonderful pedestrian way. On the north side, the commission approved a very bold and very unique alley activation. This alley activation promotes the uniqueness of Lebanon and its passion for basketball. This alley activation has visually complementary elements, but is very fresh and modern and stands out from the rest of the downtown square. Currently, both the west and the east sides are visually similar. Each alley features historic buildings to the north and to the south, has stairwells and access to interiors of the buildings. If this application were to be approved as submitted, it would mean that each side of the square would be entirely different. That would not match, visually complement each other. In order to maintain the cohesive of downtown center, I believe that the alleyway should remain how it is, or improve into the same side, which I'll go further on. Art is intended to be viewed and appreciated. Currently, the alleyway does not have a lot of pedestrian traffic. The majority of the use is typically when events happen downtown. The use of the alley is almost exclusively used for waste management and restroom facilities. In this case, the art could be obscured from view by either equipment or people walking to the facilities. Another common use is the space for golf cart parking, which we enjoy as well. Every Friday nights during downtown, we have music and the farmers markets. We see a lot of that used. The commission has taken a position to promote art in our district, both temporary and permanent. A few years back, the commission rejected an installation of a modern concept mural downtown. It was later determined the mural was a much better fit on the Big Four Trail. It has been mentioned that the alley would also be sealed, preventing water from penetrating. Well, currently there is no porous asphalt in use or any type of water drainage. Water does seem to permeate the alleyway without entering the envelope of their structures. Historic preservation standards discourage the use of sealing brick, as doing so would do more harm. Therefore, the base of the buildings to the north and the south should not be sealed to prevent water from entering. If there is a sealed surface directly adjacent to the structure, water will likely enter the permeable brick, thus creating potential but likely structural issues. The south alleyway was specifically designed with these thoughts in mind. The project was designed and constructed in a way that directed the flow of water away from the structures and not to it. The buildings on all four sides of the squares are among the oldest and most unique in our entire city. They define the beauty and charm of our downtown. The visual attractiveness is in the building itself. Adding additional non-historic elements to historic buildings and landscapes is typically discouraged. The size and location of the mural presented, in my opinion, distract from the purpose of the district's founding. I firmly believe that a transformational project such as this alley activation or mural should have more public input or be exactly as designed as the south alleyway, which is the intent of the downtown project. The infrastructure below is just important as to what's on top. If we majorly visually transform the alleyway, it should be done with the input of the public adjacent property owners, architects, engineers, and the property owner of the alley. This application vastly differs from any application brought before the commission. I am not familiar of another time when this board has considered painting a mural on the surface of a roadway or alleyway in our district. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't consider it for another location in our district. I do not think it's complementary to the surrounding buildings or an appropriate location for the particular medium desired. I do believe the installation of public art is beneficial to the district, but location is the main attraction. I believe the north-south alley in between Meridian and East Street would be a much better location for this mural. The wayfinding signage directing the public to park in the lot, which we'll see later in our meeting, would direct all the visitors downtown to view and see this mural. It would also enhance a very underutilized area of our district. It's all just asphalt parking lot. Another great option would be the north-south alley between Meridian and Lebanon Street. Similar location, though this location is surrounded by private lots and not public lots. In closing, I just want to reiterate that I'm committed to bringing art within our district. I recognize the immense value that art brings to our community and the importance of fostering the creativity and expression. However, as a steward of our historic downtown and history in general, it's incumbent that we ensure that any addition enhance rather than distract from our downtown. I applaud the vision behind the proposed murals downtown, but firmly believe that the placement in this alleyway or the alleyways downtown on the square compromises the continuity and cohesiveness of our historic district. I would love to consider alternative locations in the district where it can be appreciated uninhibited and inviting residents and visitors alike to appreciate its beauty and significance. So thank you for giving me that, just indulging in my time there, but there was a lot of thought and what I put in there. And it's not about, speaking to somebody privately earlier, and they said, it sounds like it's not your backyard, and that's not the position here. My position as a district, look at what this alley is. I think we should not be saying, let's accept a Band-Aid for 5 years. We have other areas of the square that have had those activations, like the south side. That's ultimately what I think, as a commission, we decided that we wanted when we approved the original downtown plan, but it was echoed twice by the applicants tonight. And pushing that back 5 years, I don't think is okay. And I don't also think should be bared on the shoulders of the Heart of Lebanon. They shouldn't have to bear that cost. Those alley activations should be at the expense of the city. And that's a side point, but I don't want us to feel pressured because of funding to have to do that. I feel like the city should bear that responsibility. Ultimately, if this alley activation was similar to the south side, it would be an immediate and resounding yes recommendation from me. But I just can't get on board with, we have to leave it for 5 years. That limits any growth or any improvement of that alley. That limits us to 5 years from now. And, we already, and I'm speaking on my building in particular, because of the way that our parcel actually stops where the concrete is. So we can't take or touch anything past that. But we have water currently coming into our envelope, and there is no way to fix that. We've had engineer and study done, and the only way is to divert the water from the alleyway away from the building. And I can't control that. And I don't own the alley, so I can't fund that either. And I also believe that should be the city's responsibility. So that's my view. I really want to see alley improved. I would love for it to look identical as the south side, and I think there's also, and we've had conversations with adjacent business owners about actually pooling our trash receptacles at the very end of the alley, and so you'd have that kind of that fence, that pedestrian, like how Chop House has, so you do a little zigzag. That could be utilized by a lot of different partners. And as you're walking down Washington Street, you wouldn't see 4 or 5 trash receptacles collectively between all of us. So that's where I would like us to look at, rather than just approving it in its location, and limiting us and limiting the city for the next 5 years, I think we should push harder on improving that space at a better capacity, so.
I'll just follow up. I do appreciate the commentary. I definitely, your perspective on concern for maintenance and condition of the building is, I would say, of the utmost importance. I can't really speak to the condition of the alley as it is today without going out there and looking at it to know if there is any existing permeable brick that is exposed or not, and adding pavement would either improve or worsen that situation. I do wonder, I definitely have a strong interest in improving the quality of that alley. I've been in that alley before, or passed through it, you know, coming and going from the square. It doesn't feel like anyone's really taking ownership of it. So I definitely share the interest in doing that. I would question if the mural isn't a favorable approach and has some maintenance concerns or to the adjacent structures. You had shown the catenary lighting and said that really wasn't being contemplated at this time. Would that be an alternate option to at least embrace the alley more than it is today?
Well, in order to do the catenary lightings, we'd have to have the poles. With Alley Oop, we do have a painted mural on that surface, and that was approved by this board. So we will have a surface mural alley in the downtown with Alley Oop. And with this board, we did agree with that alley to do catenary lighting. And so that tripled our budget. So it took us 3 years to gain that money, but we did. We were able to get a grant last year and raise funds within the community to raise $107,000 to be able to put those light poles in. So it's a significant cost to the project. The good thing about Alley Oop is there are sidewalks down each side of the alley, so those poles could be put on those sidewalks because the sidewalks really weren't walkable anyways. One has the electrical box on that, so yeah, we don't want to attach anything to the buildings. That's not good either, especially with the shape of those buildings are in. Yeah, that wouldn't be, you know, we couldn't do that. We'd have to do a pole. So we do have a mural on the north side of the square that will be on Alley Oop. The facilities, we usually sometimes we'll have portalettes at the end of that alley. Now, we do supply the portalettes that are down in the city parking lot. The Heart of Lebanon pays for those. So we have those, but sometimes we like to have extra facilities which are closer. So sometimes we do put those in the alley. With this mural, we would put them towards the back of the alley. The whole point of these pedestrian alleys are to activate them, to get people using them and in them. So we feel like with this mural, it would create an investigation, like, oh, what's that? You know, so you have to go walk over to the alley, walk into the alley, and kind of investigate what that mural is, and then learn a little bit about the history of Lebanon. So that mural only takes up half of the alley, so it would leave the rest of the alley to put our facilities if we needed them downtown. So it would create more of an activation of the space. Because right now it's not utilized. Yeah, there are some carts that park in there, but then I've had complaints about carts parking in there. So, you know, this would keep those carts to the back of the alley and create more of a pedestrian area, which is what we want. That's the reason why we vacated those to vehicular traffic, is because we wanted those to become pedestrian alleys and be usable. Now, if we put the mural, there's a asphalt art guide put out by Bloomberg Associates. So there's this whole guide on doing asphalt art. It's done around the country, around in Europe, in Canada. So this is something that is not something that our design professional came up with. This is something that's utilized. And so there's this whole I think it's a 170-page guide on asphalt art. And so if we were to put it where there was vehicular traffic still, it wouldn't last long. I mean, you're having vehicles run over the top of it versus people walking over the top of it. So the wear on that, on that would be different. So and part of the alley along Mr. Sampson's building, that does not go up to brick. If I'm correct, he has a wooden stairway that has paneling, basically exterior paneling on it, that the alley meets to. So the only, and then there's a sidewalk towards the back, and this mural does not extend upon, past that electrical panel. And I think that the sidewalk goes all the way down
55
this.
feet is further than that panel. Because the building's only 110 feet long.
It's on the back side of that panel
And
is
that's-
where the mural goes.
And so that structure, I think is only 20. So there is a considerable amount where it does go right up to that concrete. Just a point of clarification, since you mentioned the structure. So, and that's actually not where we actually get a lot of water in, is the wood structure. It's the back part. It's where, actually right where right beside to the east, I'm sorry, to the west of where the electrical box is. And that comes in from the alley, and that is where that mural would be.
Is the sidewalk raised? You have a sidewalk all the way down the alley, or
It's not
no?
my sidewalk, it is the city's.
So it has a raised sidewalk on your side?
No. it's
All
not.
the way down?
It is not raised. It is flat. It is at the same plane as the alley. It is not like it does look like a sidewalk, but it is concrete to asphalt. So, even with snow, it stays there.
If I could make a request, I can't overlook any potential just concerns for drainage. If you could make it any worse by resurfacing it, that's the only thing I would say I'm taking issue with today is resurfacing, not necessarily the mural itself. If the issue has been raised that it could potentially make the drainage situation any worse, I think there's some due diligence required to look into that before we could approve it. I could approve it. Personally. That's my only request.
Okay.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
Hi, guys. My name is Corey Coots. I'm the president of Heart of Lebanon, also a resident of Lebanon. If we want to show the Elmo device. So this is a street view of the Sampson property. So this is looking up the alleyway of what we see right now. So if you see there, you've got the wooden structure that's housing the stairs. So one thing to bring up, we talked about continuity around the square. So if you look at it right now, south side has already been done. It's got the catenary lighting. It's been done very well. It's got the different substrate, all that fun stuff. North side took us 3 years to raise to do the catenary lighting and to do all that. It does also include the surface painted, right? So very similar to what's being proposed here. If you look at the Cowens drive-through, so when we talk about similarities east and west, I don't think that you can honestly sit there and say they look the same. I really don't. If you look at the Cowens lot, we just recently approved that stairwell to go up to the upstairs of Merle Norman. Correct? Last year, Derek? And if you look at the historic, I guess, feasibility of that property versus this, so that property has a all-metal structure with no covering. It's very timely, if you will. I don't think we could say the same about this building and this structure on the side of it. Having a panel stairs going up to the building is not the same look that we're having on the west side right now. So to say that we have the same right now, I think is a little disingenuous. And then, as you look here, so you can see the path that she was talking about. We did some replacement on the downtown, so you see the difference in the finish, correct? So right now, the first, I'm gonna say 8 to 10 feet of the building to the south end of that has actually been painted with like a red paint. And most of the time, if you drive down there in late spring, you're going to see some high school seniors taking pictures next to that as high school senior pictures, right? So really cool, kind of rustic feel. By taking care of the surface underneath it, that's just going to enhance it. And Missy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as we talk about the 5-year deal, yes, the grant stipulates it's a 5-year. What that stipulation may be, we may have to reimburse the grant within that 5-year time period, which if we're looking at a position where the city of Lebanon's going to determine that we need to do an extensive overhaul, do the catenary lighting, do drainage, do something different, then that would be absorbed in the cost of that project. Total grant on this, Missy, is how much?
This one was close to 10,000.
So from a nonprofit organization, 10,000 is a sizable piece of money, right? When we look at the overall and the fact that we're spending 100,000 on the other alley, a $10,000 absorption into a total redo of this alley is not going to be a big deal if we get to the funding from the city in, say, 3 years or 4 years. And at that point, we're not even positive that those grant funds would be reimbursed. It's just they have the ability to do so if they feel inclined. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on some of the points that were made about comparing what the square looks like today and what we see here. So, thank you.
I want to elaborate on a point that was made. So, you know, this doesn't have to be, you know, personal against our structure. We inherited this, and it's interesting. We've talked about this before as a commission on how old does something have to be before it's historic. I think the covered awning is unsightly, but it comes at a very high cost to do. We just purchased the building last year. So, you know, there are steps to do it, and they're also trying to time them in different areas, different timeframes. So we are expecting to do that in the next 3 years, is our goal, but it is very costly. And it's also difficult because since we are discussing that side, there's a doorway that goes to the basement, and there's also concerns with if we expose that, how do we keep that from draining? Right now, it's covered and it's not causing more harm. In speaking with someone that's been around for 84 years, he said that the reason that it was all covered up, as well as the one in the back, was to keep the water out. So we have some unique areas in that particular side of the building and in that alley. But I want to reiterate, I want to improve the alley. And I feel like making an assumption that painting the surface of the alley is an improvement, I don't agree with that. It may be a visual improvement, and we've discussed this before, that you have opinions on what is aesthetically pleasing and what is not. I personally believe that the aesthetic in our downtown are the structures, and if we distract from that, I think that does cause a problem. But we're just painting it. And I'll go back to it. Corey, I believe what you're saying, that $10,000 is a lot for a nonprofit. 100% agree. And I personally take the opinion that it shouldn't be on the Heart of Lebanon's financial dime to do this project. I think that this could be a great project for the city, the RDC, other areas that have helped fund this downtown project before to add to it.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of piggyback a little bit on that, Mr. Chairman. Missy or Corey, have there been any, and I'm not saying to speak for the city, but have there been any discussions with the city to maybe have them maybe have a little more financial input into this project to make it something that would be a little more substantial, upfront, rather than maybe a 5-year temporary project and then something bigger down the road?
May I?
Yeah.
So a couple of things. So first of all, as far as the stairwell structure, not personal at all. You were of the opinion that both sides are the exact same, and I just very different.
Sure, that's your opinion.
Very
Well, that's
different
fine.
opinion on that piece. So, as far as the city and the skin in the game there, so the redevelopment commission does still fund the Heart of Lebanon as a big chunk of funding. We're in a very unique position. So one of the other hats that I wear, I am the president of the Redevelopment Commission. So putting that hat on for a second. So as you look at our downtown as it stands today, there is a lot of question on what that may look like in 3 years, in 5 years. So we're looking at the chicken or egg piece, right? So do we take a small chunk, a relatively small overall dollar amount, to make a quick, easy impact in an alley, to get that done and kind of a check mark before we get into some of these major projects. So one of which is the NetTech building. So the NetTech building was purchased by the Redevelopment Commission. A purchase agreement was awarded to a developer to completely redo the facade of that building. So that was one of the big eyesores of our downtown. The reality is, structurally, that ballet building has some questions around it. So we got to be careful of, if we do too much in that alleyway, what's going to happen with that ballet building, and is that what the final use is going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? So yes, but.
I just have a quick question and a comment. My question, catch me up to speed. Who funded the Chop House alleyway?
The activation part of it?
Yes.
It was City of Lebanon funds. In fact, I'm not. RDC.
Redevelopment
Okay.
Commission.
Okay. And that was around $100,000?
No, that was substantial.
You're probably pavers and lighting and everything went into that alley. Couple 100,000, 300,000 maybe. something
Okay.
like that.
So the likelihood of that kind of money coming around again to do this alley
Well,
in
There are
question?
other priorities right now, for sure.
I think, though, that if we're going to look at, if that's what the commission wants to base, I think we should actually get hard numbers on what the cost would be. Because
Agreed.
there's a lot that goes into those projects, but there's a lot that protects our buildings. And we saw at the Montgomery Ward building, I think most of the commission was here at those, that there was very little that anybody could do to rehab those buildings. And the majority of the damage came from the incredible amount of standing water that came in that basement. I mean, it was practically a swimming pool. And so that's where I don't want it personally to base a decision off of non-concrete numbers.
And my comment would just be, I appreciate your concern for continuity when it pertains to the square, but I also think there's something to be said for diversity in art. And, I kind of look at it like when you go to an art museum, you don't want to see 100 different pieces of art that are all exactly the same. You want to see diversity. You want to see different exhibits. And so if we look at our downtown area in the square as kind of a museum of sorts, I have no problem with each of the 4 quadrants offering residents something different. But I think there's just a lot of questions that have come up in this discussion, and if at all possible, I would like to see the board table this so that we can really take a hard look at it. I'd like to go out and just put my eyes on the alley and
One thing I did offer to Missy, because I felt very strongly right away that I didn't think that this personally fits our downtown. And I've made that point very clear by now. But I did offer to have this painted actually on that building. It is unsightly. We don't want it there. Can't hear me, I guess. So it is unsightly. We don't want it to be there for very long. In fact, I know there could be some design changes or elements that would have to potentially change in the design. But I think most, if all of my concerns would be changed, or I guess conformed, if it was on the actual structure, because I wouldn't have the structural issues that I am genuinely concerned about, not just for my building, but for the building next. And to be honest with you, that's probably the very few times I say my building, we're just caretakers of it. That thing has lasted longer than all of us, and it will be here. It's in very good condition overall, and we want to maintain that. So having that there is a temporary use, and just as long as this grant could last for 5 years, it could stay on there. And I was hoping to have it done in 3 years, but if I have to wait 2 more years, it would be a cost increase for me, because I'm sure, like anything, metal's going to continue to rise. But it would then have it where people could even view it more. And if a project such as an alley activation, a full activation with everything that's needed to actually better protect our buildings and give it more pedestrian friendly, that mural could potentially still be there if that alley activation happens next fall, next year. And also, I think that our city council is not represented here, and they are big players too that have options that they could potentially look at funding these. So there's lots of mechanisms here.
On the grant funding, Missy, for this project, do you have it in hand already, or is it something that you're still applying for? Is there a timing factor on that in terms of when you have to use it, if you do have it in hand already?
We do not have it in hand yet.
Okay.
But the application has already been submitted.
Okay.
So.
What would do you know what the timing is on when you would hear?
I don't know when the timing is.
Okay.
It's part of a county-wide art grant. So, yeah, I don't think, I appreciate the offer, Casey. I don't think the Heart of Lebanon would be interested in putting a mural on the side of that stairway. I looked at it, it's rotting, the wood's rotting on it. It's an unsightly, it's not cohesive to what we want in our historical downtown. So I don't want to put lipstick on it to make it look better. I just don't think we would be interested in putting a mural on the side.
My view was just, they're both temporary. So
Right.
if the alley's temporary, this was temporary, that's all I was looking. It was just an offer.
I like that the alley is on the surface because it draws people into the alley. You have to investigate it. You have to see what it is. You have to stand on it. You have to read it. You have to, it's about the experience, right? Coming downtown is about having an experience. That's what we want. That's what people will remember. If they wanted to go shopping or go to the lawyer's office or something, they could go to a strip mall. The reason why you come downtown is to experience something, to walk away not with just a legal paper or a t-shirt. It's to have an experience while you're there, and that's what we want. So I feel like, surface murals, and I'm happy to forward this guide to you so you can see what other cities are doing with these surface murals. I feel like it brings some interest, some intrigue, and causes people to stop and linger longer. That's what we want people to do, so.
And can you clarify, because I know Mr. Sampson raised some concerns about potential, if there's some sealant on that alley, maybe some drainage going into the buildings. Do you know, can you clarify if that's been addressed or if that would be addressed in this project? Or how that would be addressed? I don't know if you've had any engineers look at that or.
Yeah. That's definitely something that could be addressed. I know in some of the other alleys in Alley Oop, there's actually caulking that has been put down the sidewalks. And it was even told to me by the county, like, if you remove the sidewalks or you, do something with grading that, can you please make sure that you seal that? And that's kind of what's happened along the county building in the front. When you see the sidewalk in the front, they've got that kind of that caulk barrier, and then also down the alley. So, and that was something that we committed to with the county. If we were to remove that surface, that we would help protect their building. Because, I mean, one of the pillars of a main street is historic preservation. That's why, I don't know if you guys have seen the historic guide that we recently put out, but we did the history from the beginning of 22 buildings in the downtown. And so people can pick that up and do an historic walking tour. So historic preservation is important to us too. We have lots of elements within Main Street, and one of those is design. And that's designing places where people want to work, live, and play. And part of that is playing and experiencing. So I think that this alley mural is different than what we have in the other alleys. We will have an alley painted surface in the north alley, but I just think it creates a little bit of interest and intrigue.
And I agree with Mr. Allen's comment earlier that, yeah, I think, diversity is an okay thing to have downtown. But I kind of concur with him too, that I wonder if it would be worth this commission's time, if it's not going to put this project potentially in jeopardy, to maybe table it, have maybe a little discussion, if there are some things that maybe you can get some clarification maybe from either the city or just from maybe an engineering standpoint, maybe what kind of impact this would be, or this might have on the adjacent buildings. Because I agree. I mean, I've having go to church downtown and having worked downtown previously, walking, it's probably our most unremarkable alley, and that's not a knock on your building or the buildings that are there. It's just it's fairly unremarkable. It would be nice to have something there.
Missy, I have a question. So hypothetically, we approve this, the project's complete, and then there becomes some drainage issues, some damage to Mr. Sampson's building or the ballet building next door. Who incurs those costs?
Because of seal coating the alley, it would be, it's property of the city, kind of like what we're doing with the alley oop. The Heart of Lebanon is funding the project, we're running the project, but ultimately it's the city's property. And so basically when alley oop is done, we'll gift what we've done in the alley to the city, and then that'll be their that maintenance would be on the city, and they've accepted that and allowing us to do that in that alley. So
I kind of agree with Scott and George. I like when things are a little bit different. I'm a mom with young kids. We're downtown for just about everything when the Heart of Lebanon events are happening, or my kids go to school at the ballet school. So we're right there by that alley frequently. That said, I don't want to see anyone's building get hurt, but if we could just see some sort of a study, just make sure that everything's being done the right way so that no properties incur any sort of damage. I think it's great. I know my kids love all of the new things to look at. It's fun to explore, to leave the library, take a walk before we go home. And I'm sure a lot of other families, young kids, older folks out walking are really appreciating the way our downtown has come together. It is a spot to stay. And as someone who grew up here as a young kid in the 90s when there was no reason to be downtown at all for anything, to see my kids grow up in a town where we have all of these things and it only keeps getting better, I would love to see something like that in this alley. I just want to make sure nothing's going to get hurt while we add to it. So.
What's the desire of the Heart of Lebanon to have that alley completely finished? Is there a goal, a timetable? And I'm not talking about with a mural. I'm talking about ultimately being.
I'll take over, Missy.
Oh.
That's not even a part of the conversation. I can confidently speak for the city and where we are with, allocating money. Corey's here as well with the RDC. Like I mentioned, George, there are a lot of other priorities right now. I mean, I can tell you right now, I fight for $50,000 so I can do a little extra sidewalk work where sidewalk work needs done. We have to beg for supplies when we need them for the office. So to have a broader picture about when that activation is going to happen, with the complete treatment, if that's what you're asking, Casey, it's not any time within the next year or two at best. 3. No, it's not. I mean, it's just simply not. I mean, if you were involved to see the veil lifted from the budget talks, you would see how far down the line currently something like this is. And to give you even a broader picture, the investments that the city is currently making with tax abatements, with incentives for development. You talk about Lilly, you talk about LEAP. No matter where you are on that side of the fence, I don't care. But the ideas for the city are what we're investing now, the priorities, where the RDC is throwing their money, the field house. The RDC has a tremendous money tied up in the field house. The shaved ice building, which is, currently being sold off. Those investments, which will bring more tax dollars into the community so that we can do these activations, is why we're doing these other investments in the community right now. It doesn't make any sense to say, well, we're going to spend $300,000 on a alley activation, but we don't have any growth in the community, and it puts our coffers down to zero, and there's no way to refund that. So until such time that those broader tax dollars start to come into the community, some of these wants, are a little bit further down the line. Now, with all that said, once Lilly starts firing up and they start paying their taxes, once, Project Goldfinch gets off the ground, I truly believe in 5-10 years, whatever that is, I won't have to fight for $50,000 for a sidewalk. They'll give me $5 million to do sidewalks in, a quarter of the city, and we'll knock it all out in a couple of years. The Parks Department will have every toy imaginable. The streets will all be repaved. That's the idea. That's where the current funding is going. I'm getting way off into the weeds here, but I just want to make it very clear that the smaller investments will come. But we have to get to a point where the larger investments are paying into that fund. And that's the reality of the city budget right now. I mean, you can talk to any other department. I'm biased to the planning department, obviously, but talk to the police department, talk to the fire department. They have needs that they're not getting right now because, you have to split it all up. So, with all the comments I've heard here tonight about the concerns, there are many that I think you can talk about. And I truly believe these conversations are healthy. I do believe that. We've had some other RDC meetings lately that took 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to get to a decision, back and forth. Motions made, motions killed, another motion made. And I look at that as a healthy process in the public process. It shouldn't be a 5-0 vote every time. It just shouldn't, There's nothing wrong with a 3-2 vote. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. That's why the boards are made up the way they're made up. The drainage, I fully understand that could be a concern. And I think we could probably take a look at that just to make sure that we're doing everything as a city to protect those buildings. I mean, Missy's fully right. I mean, if we get to a point where the HPC approves this application and she takes it back to the Board of Works to seek their blessing, here's what the design is. Now, can we put it on here? They do take ownership of that, and that will be made very clear to them, and they know that. But I think it's a concern. I don't think it's a concern that we can't get past. It's not pervious asphalt currently. They do make such a beast. They make pervious concrete where you look it up on YouTube. It's a pretty amazing process where you have a concrete truck dumping water into a surface and it just disappears. you know, the runoff of this alley doesn't change a ton with a seal coat, because surface water is hitting that alley and going wherever it goes currently. You know, a seal coat does change the properties of the surface. So we can certainly take a look. You know, I think making sure that we have the best waterproofing methods that we have available to us and the best and applying those with the knowledge that we have is truly the best we can do. I mean, there are many times where the city does a project and it's like, okay, we've got everything in place. You know, that didn't work quite right, and we take care of it. You know, even as recently as the Montgomery Ward building that was mentioned tonight, when we demoed the Montgomery Ward building, purchased the parking lot to the north, resurfaced the alley, resurfaced the parking lot to the east of the Tribbett building, resurfaced that alley. There were some mistakes made there with some pitching of that concrete, and it created a situation where it was putting some water into the Heflin building. If you go back today and if you were to take pictures of that timeline, you'd see what I'm talking about. But we didn't have the, in simple terms, the glue down curb that we put down, because the surface, the water from the surface of those new parking lots was just sheeting right across that to the north. So we put that glue down curb in, which has been highly successful in other parts. We've actually done that on city streets that's held up very well, and this is holding up as well. So it channels that water out to the street where it's supposed to go. Even with after we did that, the 10 feet of alley surface there between that curb and the Heflin building still wasn't pitched quite right. So we had the asphalt company come back out, grind it up, put a membrane down, and pitch it the right way. Water is very, very hard to predict where it goes. It will find the path of least resistance where you don't even know that path exists. And some of it is trial and error. You know, I'm not going to dance around that. It's you know, certainly possible that water goes somewhere we don't expect it to. But we've been very successful with dealing with that. When you start talking about a city, we're not going to turn our back on that situation. But to you know, really drill down on some of the other conversations, I don't think it's a part of this application. You know, the idea of, well, let's see if we can get the alley activated completely. It's just really not, you know, a reality. So to table the item tonight, come back at the March meeting, have a little bit more information about here's what we found out about drainage. Yep, that could have been an issue. We're going to take care of it. I don't think is a poor move by any means. I don't think that holds you guys up.
And just to clarify, Derek, there will be money set aside from the grant should the mural require maintenance over the next 5 years?
That would be a Heart of Lebanon question. Excuse me.
Yes, that wouldn't be a problem. I don't see where that would be a huge expense. We'd already have the paint for the alley. It's in the guide, and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos of artists that have painted these alleys and these roadways, and they have special paints, and you know, I don't think that's an issue at all. I did do my research on this, so.
Okay.
I think, you know, I'm not going to go over my aesthetic concerns. It's been beat to death. But one concern that I did not know before tonight was the length of time. It was stated that there was going to be sometime between 3 and 5 years of how long it's such. And I do think that we should take that into consideration on what it would be if the alley was to activate. Is that something that who's penalized, or who has to do that? And I do think it has some bearing on the board, because it is what we are approving as appropriateness. Is that something that you guys can look into on if there is an option to have this alley fully activated in the next couple of years, 3 years, 4 years?
I don't believe that is the purview of this board. This board is an appropriateness. Is it appropriate for this mural to be there for 5 years? That's the question at hand.
And I think that's what I'm asking, is if it's going to be only, if it can't be removed in 5 years, then what we're doing is we're limiting on what we can improve in our downtown historic district. And I do think that's exactly what this board is to do. If we are limiting ourselves to we can't touch anything, we can't improve.
But you're not. At worst case scenario, we have to reimburse the grant at $10,000.
And so I think I think,
So worst case, yes, the Heart of Lebanon would eat $10,000 to enable this.
Or-
As the president of the Heart of Lebanon, I will say that.
Or we could incorporate the mural into
Correct.
the activation.
Correct.
I just think more information for that would be good to have. Certainly because it is the city of Lebanon's property and not the Heart of Lebanon's as well. There's a lot of players involved there.
Well, I think at this time, I'd like to make a motion to table this until our next meeting.
Motion to table,
Second?
second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All opposed? Motion carries. All right, next order of business is Heart of Lebanon again, Big Four Trail, Lebanon L Bench.
Correct. We'll keep with the theme of the evening, artwork. So best way to describe this before I get into the staff report is certainly artwork. You know, we're talking about sculptures. Conversation is expected to be had as we talk through this. So I wouldn't expect anything less. So the applicant tonight is the Heart of Lebanon, presented by Missy Krulik. The location of the L Bench, as we're calling it, is on the Big Four Trail, adjacent to the east side of 101 West Main Street. The property is zoned central business, as just about every application that comes before you is going to be. This property, this particular section of the right-of-way has not been before the HPC. The location, or the classification of the property is the same as the previous application, city right-of-way. The Heart of Lebanon is proposing a Lebanon-themed bench to be placed on the Big Four Trail. The bench is made of quarter-inch steel, and the proposed color is yellow and will be applied as a powder coat finish. As with the last application, artwork is important to the district, and staff does support that. Staff believes a project such as this will add artwork to the district, which has been encouraged. The bench is made of quality materials and can be moved if the need arises. So if, some maintenance needed to be performed on the building, the sidewalk, whatever the case is, this is not a construction method for a artwork that requires foundations or anything crazy like that that would make it permanent. So, in a roundabout way, it is considered temporary art. I don't know what their intentions are, if this is the permanent spot, if it can be moved around for other photo ops. I think that's a big part of this is the photo opportunity. I guess that was said the same word twice there. Sorry about that. So let me get away from the staff report, which I completely fumbled, and give you the rendering here, which I now think we can get up on the screen. So there's the dimensions as you have in your packet, and the general idea of the location with the rough sketch there. So just south of the storefront windows, tucked right up against the building. You can see the imagery used by the designer, taken from another community as an inspiration. So again, as Missy mentioned with the last application, this BSK Design Studio certainly isn't just pulling ideas out of a hat. These are other installations that have been installed in other communities. So a lot of planning documents, renderings like this are certainly plagiarized and reused in other communities. So certainly a theme that we see in the planning world. When something works, it's repeated. So, and that's what you see in this case. So pretty simple presentation. L bench on the Big Four Trail, yellow in color. That may be negotiable if you all want to have that conversation with Missy. But with that, I'll bring her back up to the podium.
Yes, sorry, stuck a cough drop in my mouth, so I have to cough up here. The L bench was another one of our placemaking opportunities that BSK Design Studios came up with. We thought it was great. It was the favorite whenever I showed the design packet to the board or anybody else. That was like the star of the booklet, and it's one that the designer loved as well. So that was just natural when we were trying to think of which one we would pick to do. That one was just the star of the show, so we wanted to go with that. That side of the building at 101 West Main Street doesn't have any windows at the bottom. It's just a blank brick wall the whole way down. It does have a door at the end. So it's really underutilized. The brick, it was painted at one time, if you remember, and the owners of the building had that paint taken off. So painting is not something they want on the building. I had approached them one time about the aluminum sticker murals. They didn't want anything like that on the building, but I did approach them about this L bench, and they liked it. They say that they have a lot of kids that are getting their picture taken will stop on that brick wall. So they just thought that this would enhance that. So we're pretty excited about this project. So that's all I have with that. It would be a great photo opportunity. We had the butterfly bench, if you'll remember, a couple years ago downtown. And then that is now at the Youth Learning Garden. But I mean, it was just an interactive piece that people can stop and take a photo and sit, and it showcases Lebanon.
I'll speak first on this, and I promise we didn't wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, so don't take it personally. I like the choice of location very much, and I think the bench is well suited there. I would like to see, although I don't know it's our privilege, to see the other options. For me, personally, I don't know that the owl is necessarily contextual with that location. I think the precedent that you shared with that is very nice precedent. And you can look at the precedent and see how, where it's used, kind of picture frames the backdrop. And when you're in it, it highlights the backdrop as well. I don't know how you accomplish something similar here, and maybe you can't. But I would lean in a little bit more to how that sculpture piece could be more of a sculpture that is appropriate for that location and not necessarily an L. And the color yellow, I'm not sure on. I don't know what our other Lebanon brand colors are. I think they were in the previous agenda item tonight, so we could look back at that. I would be curious to see other colors as well. I do think it is good to know. I hadn't picked it up in the staff report tonight, the idea that this could be relocated, so definitely something to consider in the design is how it can be used in multiple locations. I definitely appreciate that, and I think it should respond to that, but have concerns just with the current design.
What's the mechanism of making it able to go in different locations?
Currently, we have it priced out as being bolted or affixed to the sidewalk in the location. I'm not for sure with the design if it would have to be kind of like the Tigers. They're mounted on a concrete, step, like base. I don't know what that would mean as far as the height of the bench, the proportions of the L, what that would change because you're raising the seat height. So it was intended to just to stay in one spot.
Would it be removed at all for the winter time?
No.
Or would it would just stay there? Okay.
It's a fixture, kind of like the penny fourth benches that are on the south side of the courthouse, the benches that are out there, 365 days a year, yeah, there is something that would stay.
As a point too, if you want to remind them that those are powder coated and they were removed to be repowder coated and replaced.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've had some trouble with the penny-fourth benches and skateboarders taking the paint off of those penny-fourth benches, and so they've been removed a couple of times, repainted, and then put back. So, I mean, it's possible.
I'll just say, I love it. I think it's unique. I think it would be something to where people could come down, take pictures, senior pictures. I could see, a lot of Instagram moments there. So I'm totally in on it.
I absolutely love it. It reminds me of the color and font of the letters when we would letter in high school. I could see it being such a great senior photo op. I just remember how much fun, my kids are much younger, but how much fun the butterfly bench was. My favorite picture of my youngest daughter is on that butterfly bench. And I think, what other fun memories could other people make with such a unique seating photo op like that? And then if there ever comes a time to rehome it, how fun, cool would it be if it ended up at the high school? Like, I could see that being a fun, photo op outside of the football game or before homecoming. I think that's a really unique piece that could bring a lot of fun to our community for a lot of years.
I will agree with Andrew, though, about the color choice. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on that. Black and gold typically is, when I think of Lebanon, I think of gold, more gold than sunshine yellow. So,
Yeah, in that last slide was the branding colors for the Heart of Lebanon, or for the City of Lebanon. That's kind of
Be
what
the
we've
yellow
gone
right
with.
here?
Right there.
Yeah, right there.
Same yellow? Is that it? Okay.
So it's
And that's
kind of
what-
what we try to, downtown is traditional, and so I try to play it safe with you guys and use the branding colors. But, if we're open to another color if you feel like.
or black,
Would black pop as much, though?
probably not.
It would, I think it would complement the architecture of the building, maybe to your point. You don't like the design overall for the of the
Yeah, while we're not a design committee entirely, contrast is good. I support a contrasting color. I don't mind something that pops against historic architecture. I like pop art, and essentially what this is. So, and maybe just the design of the L is not my taste, but I'm one person.
Any further discussion on the color? The color is proposed, since that's the branding color for the city.
I like it.
Further discussion? I do like the L. I think, to mimic what you said, it reminds me, first I saw it, it looked like the L, the letter patch. Lucky to get one of those. Fire of all things, but hey,
I
we'll
have to
take it.
say
That's
that
what I lettered in.
our designer did a lot of his homework on Lebanon, so it was nice to see in his design work, a lot of elements came out about
Just
Lebanon.
Not that it's a point or hill that I'm even willing to jump on, but just as a throw it out there. The letters, I just lost it. Are the letters cut in, or are they, so they're laser,
Laser cut,
Is there any consideration or any thought to do tigers instead of Lebanon, or is it, I know that adds a little bit more of the school, but it does.
Yeah, I think it's okay to celebrate the word Lebanon. I think Lebanon doesn't, we're in the Boone County Courthouse. It doesn't, Lebanon is not showcased a lot, So I think it's okay to not have the tiger. We have the tiger on all the signs, to have the word Lebanon. I think then anybody who sees that picture and doesn't know that the Lebanon Tigers, they can see Lebanon and it
Right.
just promotes our city.
Yeah, what
And
I'm thinking is this might be utilized for out-of-towners. And so I think it would be,
Yeah, Tigers, Indiana is not really a cool place.
Could add a paw print, couldn't you? Like, if you really wanted that little paw print cut out too.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the COA application for this bench.
Second?
second,
A motion and a second, all those in favor, any further discussion, I should say, I'm sorry. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Carries.
thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have a wayfinding sign in the city of Lebanon.
Okay, hopefully I don't butcher this staff report like I did the last one. So this has been a project that has been on my plate for 2 administrations ago. And we're just now finally, when you start talking about funding, finally got a point where funding became available for this project. Literally, I can remember Joe LePage and I driving to Noblesville, driving to a couple other communities that had wayfinding signage. Mayor Lastly talked about it, Mayor Lewis talked about it, but when it came down to it, it's like, who's going to pay for it, So it kind of died over the years. When the American Rescue Plan money came around, this is one of those projects the city put on that list, and when we got awarded the money, we're going to take the opportunity to finally do this project. So this is a citywide project. There are some locations in the historic district, so that is why it is before you tonight. So the applicant is the city of Lebanon. Suppose I'm representing the city tonight in that capacity. The location is right-of-way locations in the historic district. Shocker, the properties are zoned central business. And this idea has not been before the HPC prior. The city of Lebanon is installing citywide wayfinding signage. There are 5 locations in the historic district. These locations are identified in the attached proof document that you all received in your packet. Sign 6 is on West Main Street. Sign 7 is on East Main Street. Sign 8, Indianapolis Avenue. Sign 9, South Lebanon Street, and sign 15 is on East South Street. And I will show you these locations as I get through this staff report. There are 15 signs in total that will be installed at strategic locations throughout the city. The sign design is in line with the branding guide adopted by the city and designed to meet all traffic laws. Wayfinding, staff recommendation here, wayfinding signs are found in many communities. It is a way to identify landmark locations throughout the community. It's a way to celebrate those on a sign. It's not necessarily so somebody can find their way to the high school, but it's just a way for us to add some decorative elements around the community that you make it a little bit more clear. I think wayfinding signage has, kind of shifted in its application as everyone has an atlas in their pocket. So many of the signs the city is installing identify our historic district. None of the signs in our historic district do that, but signs that are outside of your purview, certainly those are highlighted throughout the package, leading people to our historic district so they can linger longer. Staff believes these signs will not have a negative impact on the district. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the signage. What was it? Did I mess up? Okay, all right. I thought I butchered it. So let's give you the locations here. Just to give you a general idea for your information. That is the map of the entire city of where they will be located. So you see sign 15 was the add-on sign, and I'll get to that in a minute. All right, let's see here. All right. Okay, sign 6, which is the West Main Street location. There you go. It does say the historic downtown on it. City Hall and Memorial Park is what we're highlighting. You can see it is identified in the island, the landscape island there, just to the east of the law office and to the west of the Key Bank parking lot. Sign 7, identifying Memorial Park. High school and middle school is at the corner of East Main Street and North-South Meridian Street is where it splits right there. So that would be on the northeast corner of that intersection. Sign 8, believe it or not, is in our district with the Cleary building there. It's actually being placed right where the stop sign is right now. That's all the space we had to do that. So we're incorporating a new stop sign, new decorative pole, which all these have the same pole, identifying the historic district and Central Elementary. Sorry, I just had a thought cross through my head. We're gonna have to change the Central Elementary location there. So we're.
You still go that way, though.
Yeah, you can still go that way,
You could
but.
say just historic central.
Yeah. So that's proof of how old this concept is. So nonetheless, that's where the sign is proposed to go. Sign number 9 is on the east side of South Lebanon Street, in front of the CVS, leading people to the Big 4 Trail, Memorial Park, and shopping and dining, which is pretty broad there. We have shopping and dining all along Lebanon Street as you move north. So that was the idea behind that. And then sign number 15. Sign number 15, identifying our new public parking lot, as mentioned, the old Montgomery Ward site. So it's there on the north side of State Road 32, which through town is known as East South Street. And it simply identifies public parking, on both the east and west facing side of the sign. As you notice on some of the other signs, the direction that you're being told to go is only on one side, and then the City of Lebanon brand is on the opposite side. Excuse me. That's all I have.
Finding signage? I'll make a motion to approve the COA as submitted.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor,
Aye.
Motion carries. Any staff issued or COA reports to report?
We've denied a sign application on a particular building at least 4 times now, so I do not have anything to show you any approvals for that sign. So the Brakeman building, the nail salon moving in there, we've been working with them on their sign for a little while, and they are working very slowly on our direction, but we'll get there. Yeah.
Any other further business come before the commission? None. We will adjourn, and we will reconvene on March 7th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Motion for the adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.